everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Layton and today's video we are wrapping up all of the books I read in 2025. Last year I didn't make a year-end wrap of all the books I read, only and specifically because I was so busy at the end of last year. If you guys want to check out the last time I made one of these videos, you guys can click on the screen here or it'll be linked down below. And I will say as a disclaimer, guys, I'm not planning to make this like a full spoiled review tea sesh, but I will definitely be giving away characters and plot lines and my opinions on the plot lines. So if you guys see a book that's on your TBR and you don't want spoilers, maybe like click ahead a little. All right, let's get into the first book I read. So the first book I read this year was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I finished this in January. First off, let me tell you guys something. I am a big fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love her books. I've read almost all of them. And this was actually the last of like her little Taylor Jenkins Reid universe. I love this book so much. I love the characters. It's 4 siblings and this book starts off with the climax. It starts off with a house fire and you basically go back and work your way up to the events that occurred to create this house fire and why it occurred. So this book not only gets 5 stars, but it is also the first book in 2025 that I am giving a Layton approved must read stamp. Okay, you guys have to read this one. So the second book I read, I also finished it in January. It was The Elite by Kiera Cass. This is the second book in the Selection series. Oop, that came out a little lispy. I have the first book here. I read this right at the end of 2024, so I started off 2025 with her second book. I checked it out from my library. The second book I thought was pretty okay. I rated it a 2.5 star because the first one, which I rated back in 2024 4 stars, was really well laid out. But I feel like the second book lacked the same oomph as the first one had, if you know what I mean. All right, so the third book I read in 2025 was The One, also by Kiera Cass. This is the third book in the Selection series, and this one I actually rated better than the second. I rated it a 3.5 star because I felt like it finally, like the main character finally, oh, her name's America, by the way. I feel like America really came to finally like accept she is the chosen one. She is gonna become the princess and queen. You get to see both America and Max fighting together and not against each other, which I really liked. So the next book I read for 2025 was Daydream by Hannah Grace. I finished this one in January also. This is the third book in the Maple Hills series and I liked both of the main characters. It's Henry and Hallie. I just didn't like these 2 characters as much as I liked the past 2 characters in this series. I felt like they had good chemistry and it was cute and all. I don't know, I just think something about these 2 in particular wasn't the same wow factor. But Hannah Grace is also known for being a smut writer. So Henry and Hallie were definitely freaky. So like if you're into those types of books, you might like this one. The first book I finished in February was, I don't know if I can say this word on the internet, so I'm gonna look it up, and if I can't, I'm gonna bleep it out and you guys can read the title. How about them apples? Dear Head by Virginie Despentes. I think I'm saying this wrong and I feel like I definitely am because I think this is a French author. I found this book because Kaya Gerber posted this on her Instagram and I wanted to know what she was reading. I was so hooked. I don't know why. Let me first disclaim that this book is not a romance. It's 100% fiction. It's about this gentleman named Oscar who's a B-list like novelist or like writer who's in a bit of a rut, and he emails his childhood friend who is now this huge actress. Her name's Rebecca. And it's a very rude email. He is not nice in it, but she responds. And then as the story builds, it's a bunch of emails back and forth to each other because they end up becoming friends. They definitely talk a lot about like issues that are happening in their current lifetime or issues that happened in the past that they still can't get over. So it's interesting to see them kind of go back and forth through email talking about this. I also rated this book 4 stars. I really liked it. So the next book I read is Cross the Line. This is by Simone Saltani, and I also finished it in February. And I have a very funny backstory about this book. So stay with me here. I got this book here because I was interviewing an IndyCar driver at my last job. His name is Nolan Aller. Part of my job is we do almost like a late night comedy sketch. So think of like Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, that kind of vibe, okay? So part of the bit that we were doing with this IndyCar driver was I was gonna read a smutty book live on air because I know as a book talk girly and someone who loves to read that there's a little small part of the romance community on Book Talk who loves F1, IndyCar, all that. So did my research, I found this book, went to Barnes & Noble same day and picked it up, and then I read it on air probably like 3 days later. Okay, so I was planning to fully return this book. However, if I get my hands on a book, how can I not want to read it? I didn't expect to like this book at all, but I did. I did. The characters are named Dev Anderson and Willow Williams. I hate that name, by the way. Willow Williams, come on, girl. Anyhow, it's like such your typical romance book. It's definitely super smutty too. So if that's something you're into, like smutty sports romance books, you should add this one to the list. Though I didn't expect to like this book as much, there were definitely some flaws. So I rated this one, by the way, 3 out of 5 stars. If you guys want to see me reading smut on live television, maybe I'll link it down below. The first book I finished in March was this book right here. It's called Yellowface. It's by R.F. Kuang. I don't know how to pronounce that. I feel like it is Kuang. I feel like I should also know this because this is an Asian author, and I'm Asian. Anyhow, this one is actually part of Reese Witherspoon's book club. You can see the little stamp right there. The main characters are Juniper Hayward and Athena Liu, and they're both Asian. And this book was written by an Asian author. I love representation, guys. But anyhow, on a more serious note, this book is so good. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars again. I really liked the plot line of this book. Basically what happens is Juniper ends up rewriting and editing Athena's book after Athena's dead. And then basically it's all of the fallout of like, she just published this book, but it's not really her book. And what if her secret gets discovered? It's a really good book. All right, so the next book I read was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I also finished this one in March. I know I'm very late to read this book. It's definitely, I think it's like published in 2013, and it's also super young for me. But I kind of loved being thrown back into like your freshman year of college and being nervous and excited at the same time. I kind of actually really loved that. The main characters are Kath and her twin sister Ren. And then you get to meet some of both of their friends along the way. It's all told from Kath's perspective, one of the twins. So I liked it. I rated that one 5 stars. The next book I read was The Most Likely Club, and that was by Alyssa Friedman. I read this one in March. This book, guys, gave me Desperate Housewives, but like better. Basically, the plot is there's 4 women who meet up at their high school reunion. They were originally in a friend group of 5. That's important. But these 4 women all kind of get back together and decide that they want to make a pact to achieve all of their high school superlatives. They do end up somewhat achieving all of their high school superlatives. And it's cool because you get to read from all perspectives of the women and all of their lives. Some of them are married, some of them are divorced, some have kids, some don't. And then it's really fun because in the last, I would say like 20% of the book, you finally get to see and meet and read from that 5th friend who like low-key wasn't there but is mentioned. I really like this book. I rated it 5 stars. So the next book I finished was This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I finished this one in March. The main characters' names are Felix, Lucy, and Bridget. But Lucy and Felix, they definitely get super smutty. It definitely gets a little crazy, but it's like a crazy kind of good, and I couldn't stop reading this. And I also just love their love story. Like, they have such hidden chemistry, and their relationship is like giving a forehead kiss. It's so good. So I rated this one a 5 out of 5 stars. And also, I just love like a little summer book. And obviously you can tell by the cover and the title, like, this is a beautiful book. Alrighty, so the next book I read was Best Served Hot by Amanda Elliott, and I finished this one in April. This one, I really like the premise of this. It's basically 2 food reviewers fighting for the same job. They're fighting for fame, and they're also fighting for good food. The gentleman lover in this book, what's his name? Bennett basically took the main character Julie's dream job, and they get into an internet fight basically, and the viewers want them to work together. And so they start going on these like food review lunch dates or dinner dates. They end up kind of falling for each other. This is something that's like really up my alley. Being able to see someone who's in social media doing food reviews was really fun, and a new character that I feel like I haven't actually read much of. I rated this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The only thing that I think flopped and made it not lovable is only and simply because Bennett really is like the grumpy, stubborn, you know, doesn't want to change his ways character. And this girl, Julie, is stubborn, but she's definitely a little bit more bubbly. And I wish that their chemistry ricocheted off of each other. I think that it could have been really good. I feel like it was just a little dull at points. This next book I'm so excited to tell you guys about. It is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. Oh my god, it's a 4-part series or like collection of books. The first book, we meet everyone. We meet Clementine, aka Emmy Ryder. We meet Luke Brooks, her brother Weston Ryder, and her other brother Gus Ryder. We meet her best friend Teddy Anderson. We meet Camille Ashwood. And then Cam and Gus have a daughter named Riley. We also meet their dad, who I low-key forget his name. I think it was Abe. No, Al. The first book is centered around Emmy and Luke's relationship. Luke is the brother's best friend. Emmy is obviously brothers with Gus and Weston. It is just such a cute little love story. I love where this book is taking place. It's in Wyoming. It's in the mountains. They own a ranch. Like, this is giving definitely Western film. I loved it because this is something that I don't read very often. They did hiking. There were horseback ridings. They went to rodeos. Like, this is something that I have never done in my life, and I loved reading it, and that's why also I love books, because it's a lot of things that I haven't done. There is a lot of smut in these books, so stay tuned, because Emmy and Luke are the first of this collection and series that I read. This earned 5 stars, and it is also another Layton approved must read. You have to pick this one up, whether or not you check it out on Kindle, or you check it out from your library, or you buy it hard copy. Honestly, I wish I got these ones hard copy, because this cover right here, it's beautiful. The next book I read was Emily Henry's Great Big Beautiful Life, or if you stay up to date on Book Talk, The Great BBL. And I have a lot to say about this book. So I love Emily Henry. I own all of her books in hardback. I lied, but I have read all of Emily Henry's book, and I have reread a lot of them too. So in my opinion, I feel like she flopped with Happy Place, but then she redeemed herself with Funny Story, okay? Well, this past year she released The Great BBL, but this book is just not, it's not giving what I expected or hoped or wanted. I first off want to say that this book, maybe this is my, this was like my mistake, but the way that they promoted this book, I thought this was supposed to be a romance book because that's what Emily Henry does. But this is not romance. This is fiction with like a sprinkle of mystery and like a dash of romance. There's really not that much chemistry between the two characters, which, by the way, the characters' names are Alice and Hayden. This is one of those books where I think the plot line is very promising, but the execution was done poorly. Basically, the plot line is these two writers are fighting for a chance to write this juicy piece about this missing heiress. There's a lot of twists and a lot of turns. If you guys have read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, it's basically this, but at least with Taylor Jenkins Reid's book, it's more of a mystery fiction, whereas this is like romance fiction and mystery. I don't know. It's just not giving. I wish I liked it. I really do. But there was no spice. The mystery was basically predictable. And I severely disliked the epilogue. Anywho, the last thing I have to say is, unfortunately, I did rate Emily Henry's book a 2.5 star. Moving on. The next book I read was My Magnolia Summer by Victoria Bennett Frank. I finished this one in May. I think this book is perfect for summer. It takes place in like a little small low-town country hometown. Main character is named Magnolia, nicknamed Maggie. But Maggie moves home because her sister Violet needs her help running the family business, and unfortunately their gran is in a coma. Their mom is just a mess. Her name is Lily. They all got like flower names. And they're trying to save the family business, and the mess that Lily is in actually keeps stopping them along the way. The family business, by the way, is a small town restaurant. It was something like The Lantern or something whimsical like that, and I really liked it. And I rated it 4 stars. So pretty solid book. All right. The next book I read was Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. This is the second book in her series. This one, by the way, even smuttier, which I love. This relationship is similar to the first, very well executed. It's between the oldest writer sibling, Weston, and then this girl named Ada Hart. Ada is one of Teddy's friends from college, and again, Teddy is Emmy's best friend. But she comes into town because they've recruited her. She's an interior designer, and Weston is trying to fix up part of their ranch that they live on, which is also a business, and it's called Rebel Blue. They end up obviously falling in love. Who's shocked? I rated this one 4 stars, and I also finished this one in May. Anywho, guys, I feel like we're not even halfway through the books I've read. The next book I read was Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. I finished this one in May, and before I forget, I rated this one a 3.5 stars. I actually got my hands on a physical copy of this book because my coworker gave it to me, which was so sweet of her, and it's a self-help book. The author, Rachel, starts off every chapter with a lie that she was told, and then actually continues to go in during the chapters of why she thinks it's a lie or why she once believed it, and also talks about how she thinks about these situations and or phrases differently now, which I really liked. And I definitely recommend anyone, especially literally any female at any age, to read this book. I think that there are a lot of good pieces of advice in there. Moving on to my next book that I finished, which was not very good. I read Made in Manhattan by Lauren Lane. I finished this one in May, and like I just alluded, I rated this one 2.5 stars. I marked this on my TBR 3 years ago. 3! Oh my god. The main characters are Violet Townsend and this guy Kane Stone. And when I was putting together this whole document of like all of the books that I've read and like little synopsises and what I thought, I kind of forgot most of this book, but basically Violet is like your typical Upper East Sider Manhattan princess. And Kane is this like Louisiana swamp monster. Violet is put in charge by her grandmother to train Kane, who is also her long lost grandson, to take over their family company and basically like get him acquainted out of his southern roots. While like trying to like remember everything, then I got confused because I'm pretty sure Kane and Violet actually get into a romantic relationship, but like wouldn't that be incest? The next book I read was Bluefish. It's by Pat Schmatz. Pat Schmatz. I finished this one in May, by the way, and it's funny because when I actually moved home, a lot of these books here on my shelf are from middle school and high school, and like I own this book, but I've never read it, or at least if I did read it, I clearly didn't remember, so this is probably a reread. Rated it 4 stars. I think it's very cute. The next book I read is by my girl Taylor Jenkins Reid. I finished this book in May, and it is the book After I Do. I rated this one 5 stars. Guys, this one was really good. I told you, Taylor Jenkins Reid does not fail me. The main characters are Ryan and Lauren. They are a married couple, and right at the beginning of the book, they decide that they have fallen out of love and that they're going to take a year apart of living from each other and being in contact every day to try and figure out how to get back on track. And I think that this book is very raw and real. It's definitely an interesting take because love in general comes in many different ways, and it's a different definition to a lot of people. So I think the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid was able to portray these fictional characters and bring them back together, that is hopefully not a spoiler for you guys. I feel like you guys could probably figure that one out. I rated it 5 stars because of course Taylor Jenkins Reid does not flop. The next book I read was The Summer of Songbirds by Christy Woodson Harvey. I finished this one in May. I actually didn't think I would like this book as much as I did. There is a woman named June. She owns a summer camp, and that's where her niece Daphne met her 2 best friends, Lanier and Mary Stewart. But it's one of those stories where the characters all come together to not only save their childhood camp, but one another. All of these girls all have secrets that they're keeping from one another, even though they're best friends. And in the process of saving this camp and getting it back on its feet, they also kind of like help fix one another and grow even stronger. And I rated it 4.5 stars. All right, the next book I read, the first book of June, was Perks of a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Hello. I was severely let down by this book. I really thought this book was gonna be a lot better. This book is a bunch of diary entries, and it definitely is like a coming of age. And it's funny actually, I'm recording this on December 4th. Last night actually, I actually sat down and watched this movie, and I hate to be the one. I low-key think the movie was better than the book. And that's only and simply because the book is a lot. There's a lot of information, but there's also a lot of fluff in there at the same time. I feel like the book could have been shorter. It was just a letdown. I was kind of sad. I didn't want it to be like that. The next book I read was The Daydreams by Laura Hamlin. I read this in June. This one automatically gets a Layton approved must read. It is 5 stars right off the bat, let me tell y'all. The plot is a reunion for 4 teenage pop stars who had their own show. Like, they were on the path to becoming like basically like huge stars. However, the season finale basically was such a flop, and it basically ended all of their careers. It ended the show. And now all 4 characters are back as adults. They all have their own lives. It's fun to read like these throwbacks or these memories, but also as adults, and seeing whether or not they actually want to come back together and do a real reunion for their fans, because their fans are dying. They want to know more. They want to know what happened. I don't want to spoil too much. This is definitely giving like early 2000s drama. Okay, so the next book I read was The Long Snapper by Jeffrey Marks. I read this one in June. This one is a biography because I like to switch around my genres, and also just because this is another one of those books that I found on my shelf, and I was supposed to read this in high school. I don't remember if I did, if I'm being honest, and so that's why I read it. But it's a biography about Brian Kinchkin. He's a snapper, which is a position in football. And this book basically picks up 3 years after he retired. He was asked to come back to the NFL for the New England Patriots, and he actually ended up getting the Patriots that season into and winning the Super Bowl in the last 9 seconds. So this is his story. I really liked it. I rated it 3.5 stars, and that's coming from a girl who likes football, but really I like football for the food and then like the dressing up portion. The next book I read was also in June. I got my hands on the new edition Beach Read cover. Look how beautiful this is. And then look at this. Look at this. Look how, oh, see, this book is beautiful. But my boyfriend bought me this for my birthday this past year, and I reread it. I automatically, I'm gonna tell you guys, the first time I read it, it was 5 stars. This time around, it is 5 stars. This one is a Layton approved must read. This is my favorite Emily Henry book, and if you haven't read this one at this point, just go buy it right now. The next book I read was also a gift from my boyfriend for my birthday. It was One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune, another Carly Fortune book, another one of hers that didn't flop, because I finished this one in July. I rated it 5 stars. This is set in the same world as the first book of hers, Every Summer After, and it actually features one of the brothers, Charlie Florek. None of this book felt forced. The chemistry between Charlie and Alice is off the charts. It's so good. This is another great summer book. Again, look at this cover. Her covers are always so beautiful. And if I had to choose a Carly Fortune book, this is probably my favorite. However, you need to read the first one so that you know Charlie. The next book I read was the 3rd book of my Western series. It is Lost and Lassoed by Miss Lila Sage. This is book 3, lucky number 3. This one is about Teddy Anderson, again, Emmy's best friend, and Emmy's brother, Gus Ryder. These two, since the very beginning of the first book, always butted heads. They have always gotten underneath each other's skin. They are basically like oil and water. However, these characters have some steamy chemistry, and it's nice that this book was dedicated to the both of them and that they were actually put together, because in this book you see a whole different side of Gus, who is known as this single but co-parenting tough guy, and Teddy, who is this vivacious, super charismatic but super loudmouth character. You get to see 2 different sides of these characters, and also seeing them come together and seeing Teddy's maternal side. All of it was so good. This is probably my second favorite book in the series. I rated this one 5 stars. The next book I read was Star Island by Carl Hiaasen. I read this in July, and I rated this 1.5 stars. I feel very bad about that because my boyfriend's brother-in-law actually gave me this book and recommended this author in general to me because he lives in St. Pete, which is pretty close to where I lived when I was living in Florida. And all of his books take place in Florida. However, there are some issues I have with this book. The plot line was messy. Characters were introduced in the most weirdest ways. Like, they literally would get an intro at the beginning of every chapter. And I don't understand why he, would do that. Like, why would you put a character's background at the beginning of a chapter when half the time it was not relevant to the story? I think the plot line had so much promise. It's basically, this superstar has a secret stunt double that she doesn't know about. That's because the superstar had to go to rehab, but then the stunt double gets taken hostage. So that's like a really good plot line. It just was really poorly executed. All right, moving on to the last book in my Western Cowboy series. It was Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage. And unfortunately, this is the last book in the series. Unfortunately, number 2, I finished this one in July. And unfortunately, number 3. Guys, I rated this one 3.5 stars. I know, I'm embarrassed too. The reason I rated this one 3.5 was because this book revolves around Camille, who you meet in the first book. Camille is Gus's baby mama. They have a child together, her name is Riley. Everyone loves Riley, everyone loves Camille. Camille is a lawyer, she's hardworking. The beginning of this book takes place actually at Camille's wedding, where she gets stood up at the altar and her high school boyfriend actually comes and saves her and picks her up. His name is Dusty Tucker. You meet Dusty in the second book. Both Camille and Dusty felt like side characters. I felt like they didn't necessarily need a book to themselves. That's all I have to say. Unfortunately, did not love that last book of hers. The next book I read was Exciting Times. I don't even know how to say this name. I think it's like Irish. I read this book in July. I thought this book was gonna be really good, but I feel like this review on Goodreads basically sums up exactly how I feel about this book. Yeah, you read that right. But to follow up, the next book I read was also bad. It was How to Fake It in Hollywood by Ava Wilder. I read this one and finished it in August, and I rated it 1 star. And the literal only note that I have about this book, and I wrote this in all caps, was so freaking cheesy and way too long. Moving on. The next book I read was actually a reread. I read The Last Song by Nicholas Sparks. I read this one in August. The first time around I got 5 stars, so this time around I got 5 stars also. This is the only book that I also doggy ear. I totally am okay with getting this one ripped and getting it like sun worn, and some of the pages are wet in here. I think if we tried really hard, you might find sand in this book. I found out this time around, I had no idea, but Nicholas Sparks actually was asked to write not only the book, but he was also asked to write the screenplay, which is pretty cool. And the whole time he had Miley Cyrus envisioned as the girl who played Ronnie. Alrighty, the next book I read was this one, The Wedding People. It is by Alison Espach. I finished this one in August, and I rated this one a 5 out of 5 star. This is a Layton approved must read. You guys need to go pick up one of these books because I fell for the cover. I thought this was beautiful, right? I read the little inside blurb about it. I was like, oh, this is interesting, right? And you get to see that it's about this one character named Phoebe who crashes someone's wedding. They rented out this hotel on this island for their wedding weekend. The bride and Phoebe end up becoming friends, confidants, companions, and more. And it's just nice to see Phoebe's arc. I really like this. I think you guys should go add this to your TBR, add it to your cart, and read it as soon as possible. This was a great book. I believe it also got into a bunch of 2025 awards also this past year, so go check this one out. The next book I read was by my girl Elle Kennedy. I love Elle Kennedy. She wrote the Off Campus series and Briar U, which I have read in years past and was obsessed with. But in August, I read her book Girl Abroad. I rated it 3.5 stars, and I, again, surprisingly, liked this one a lot more than I thought I was going to. It's about this American girl named Abby who goes to study in England. She thought she was getting 3 girl roommates, and whoops, she got 3 boy roommates. So it's fun to kind of see like this college girl. She ends up getting in a little love triangle too. The next book I read was Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I never know how to pronounce her name. I read this one in August. I need to stop reading Annabelle Monaghan books because I rated this one 2 stars, guys. The actual writing style seems so young for such an adult plot line. The whole plot is about how this married woman is grieving the 2-year anniversary of her mother's death, and her husband's like, we need to get separated. Meanwhile, homegirl has 3 kids. She's like grieving the loss of her mom and now her separated husband, and she ends up meeting a guy. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm also not there yet mentally, right? Like, I'm 24. I'm not married, divorced, or have 3 kids. Okay, so the next book I read was The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I read this one in September. This one has been also marked on my Goodreads TBR list for years, and I finally just now got around to reading it. It's about this girl named Bree. She's the main character, and her love interest slash best friend is Nathan. She's a dancer, he's the quarterback. It's one of those cutesy little rom-coms. All good things. Rated this one 3.5 stars. But honestly, looking back, I don't know why I did that. It might honestly get a 4-star rating from me. The next book I read was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I read this one also in September, and it got 4 stars because this is the first book of 2 from her Bellinger sister series. It is focused around Piper. She's the oldest of the Bellinger sisters. She's also the resident party girl before her stepdad puts her on timeout and ships her off to this like little sleepy town where she discovers that her dad is actually like this like local legend, and she decides to honor his legacy and create a bar, build a bar from the ground up. You also get to meet her sister, who is the second book, and her love interest named Brendan, and his best friend Fox. The next book I read was Body Check, another one by Elle Kennedy. This one I read in September, and I rated it 3 stars, which kind of stinks because I was pleasantly surprised by Elle Kennedy's last book that I just talked about, Girl Abroad. This one just didn't really do it for me. Also, the main character, this is not like a spoiler, but the main character, Hayden, has a boyfriend at the beginning of the book and decides that while she's away, she's gonna go on a break with him, but then ends up sleeping and getting in a new relationship. And I don't know, I feel like that's cheating. To switch gears, the next book I read was The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I finished this one in September, and this one was 5 stars. I love this one. I was originally waitlisted for this book at my local library for 17 weeks. I waited 17 weeks for this book, you guys. And honestly, it was worth the wait. This is a Leighton approved must read. I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but her main character, female lead, her name is Anna Green, and the main love interest is Liam, aka Weston. Basically, the 2 of them decide to get legally married back in college so that in 5 years, Liam, aka West, could access his trust fund. However, right at the end of the 5 years, the parents, they're like, we expect you to bring your wife because we think you're faking it. Well, guess what? He was. This book is like a mess, but it's like a chaotic, good, funny, feel-good mess. All right, the next book I read was Out of Left Field by Stephanie Geis. I finished this one in October. I rated this one 2.5 stars, which honestly I feel kind of bad about. Get this, you guys, okay? So I used to live in Florida, right? I was down there visiting my boyfriend, and we were at a bookstore, and she was there. And look, she signed my book. I've never had a signed book before, so this is my first signed book, and I think it's also really funny because the setting of this book is actually on the Chesapeake Bay, which is where I'm from. Honestly, I would bump this up to 3 stars. This was a really great book. The next book I read was First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. I read this in October. I rated this 4 stars. This is part of Reese Witherspoon's book club. I low-key had no clue what I was getting myself into with this book. This book is literally all about lying, duh, but it's also about betrayal and loyalty and survival of the fittest. And the female lead, Evie Porter, is such a badass. I don't know how she was able to like turn off her emotions, but this book is full of plot twists and turns and deceit and betrayal and loyalty. Honestly, like, again, like if that's something you're into, definitely go read this book. It's so good. All right, guys, we have 6 books left to review. Let's keep going. The next book I read was Wedding Issues. I read this here in October and I rated this 4 stars. I love this book. This is another great book. Guys, listen up. You ready? Ready? The main character is named Liv. One of my best friends is named Liv. And Liv, in this book, her best friend's name is Layton. I've never read a book with my name in it. Her and Liv are trying to get Layton on the cover of Southern Charm for the bridal edition. However, Liv's evil aunt, Aunt Charlotte, decides to put her daughter, aka Liv's cousin, Callie, in the running for the cover of Southern Charm, also for the bridal edition. A lot of this I can see myself in. I could go on and on, honestly. The next book I read was If I Stay by Gail Forman. I have it right here. I read this one in October. This is another one of those books that, like, the movie came out in 2010. I've never watched the movie, so I read the book first. And unfortunately, I rated this one 2.5 stars. The next book I read was less than just okay. I read Looking for Alaska by John Green. I finished it in November, by the way, and I rated it 1 star. And this one was another letdown. Now looking back, I realized it was my fault. So sticking with this whole, like, the movie was made in 2010. I thought when I checked out Looking for Alaska, I was actually checking out Paper Towns. I knew that John Green had a movie with Cara Delevingne and I wanted to watch it, but I wanted to obviously read the book first. However, I checked out the wrong book. I just realized that last night when I was typing out my book notes here. The next book I read was Hook, Line, and Sinker. This is the second book by Tessa Bailey here. I read this one in November and I rated this one a 4.5 stars. This one got just a 0.5 star better than the first book. And I don't usually do that often. The reason why I like this one better is because this book focuses on Hannah, who's Piper's younger sister, and Fox, who's Brendan's best friend. I just really liked how Hannah and Fox's relationship unfolded in contrast to Piper and Brendan's. Their love story happened almost instantaneously, but we had to wait the whole book just to see them kind of finally admit, like, they love each other, they're into each other, they want that relationship to work. Second to last book, here we go, guys, we're in the home stretch. I read My Favorite Half Nightstand by Christina Lauren, another Christina Lauren book. I finished this one in November. It's basically a friend group of 5, which includes one girl, and the girl is named Millie. All 5 of them decide that it's time for them to find dates for this upcoming work event, but the catch of this whole deal is that they have to meet them through a dating app. I think it's really funny because the character Millie ends up creating a profile about her, but she does not include her name or her photo. One of the guys ends up matching with her. She knows it's him, but he does not know it's her. And slowly all of the friends figure out that it is their friend Millie. And it's funny to watch this whole relationship unfold online versus in person. It is so messy, but it is a good read for sure. I was genuinely on the edge of my seat, like, just waiting for the shoe to drop. Good book, rated at 4.5 stars. You guys should definitely read it. And finally, the last and most recent book I've read. I genuinely actually just finished this book this morning before I started filming. It is P.S. I Hate You by Lauren Conley. I rated this one 4 stars. I really like this book. The story, though, is about Maddie's brother Josh. He has passed away. Most of his letters that he's left for his sister are also for his best friend Dom. It's a joint letter. So they get sent on all these missions and all these elite adventures, and you get to kind of see both of them grieving the loss of their friend and their brother, but then you kind of start realizing that both of them have this past of liking each other, and they still like each other, but they're still afraid to commit because of the past. And there's a lot of twists and turns that low-key I actually didn't see. Anywho, that was all 46 books that I've read so far. That took forever. I'm sorry, guys. That was a lot. My voice feels hoarse. My throat actually kind of hurts a little. But if you guys like this video, make sure to give this a like. Follow me not only here on YouTube, subscribe down below, but follow me on Goodreads. My Goodreads tag should be somewhere right here. I am very active on Goodreads. I love Goodreads, and I think I only have like 6 friends. So come be my friend on Goodreads. You and I can pass along book suggestions to each other. Which, by the way, if you guys also have book suggestions, leave them in the comments below. If you guys agree or disagree with any of my opinions on the books that I've read and talked about in this video, comment down below. Let's have a discussion. I want to hear your guys' opinions. You guys just listen to me rant and talk about my opinions. I want to hear your guys' opinions. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Bye guys! Also, stay tuned, guys. I have one more video for 2025, so make sure you guys subscribe. I have one more video, and then it's the end of 2025, so stay tuned. Bye!